we can't. I can see her talking, but we can't hear her.
Yes, she's still mute.
You're still muted, Anne. We can't hear you at all, Anne. Hi, Azita.
Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Good. Is Julie joining today?
Not today. She said she can't, but I've just been so amazed. She's had an interest in this whole Dhamma thing all these years. She thought you were wonderful way back then.
Yes.
And
I had
go on.
when I visited in Queensland, she was the one out of you all who I had the most Dhamma discussion with, and we listened to
as you know, they were very mad times back then.
you'd all gone crazy apart, but Julie
exactly,
I could have some Dhamma discussion with, yes.
And I have written you an email in answer to it regarding Amina. Was Abby then? I think that's why she took to Islam, because she didn't, I found out later, she didn't like what was going on in the community. So,
yes.
Anyway.
I couldn't stay at the community. That's why I stayed with Julie. Morning, Trevor. Morning, Nina. Morning, Alberto. Morning, Tom.
Good morning. Now that I have a voice, good morning.
Oh, morning, Anne. Yes. Okay, Jan, are you here as well? Jonathan's coming. He's just a few minutes late.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Swadika, everyone.
Swadika, Jan.
Morning, everyone.
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์
Trevor, there were a couple of topics that we were discussing on DSG, and I said you might like to discuss them further here. One was the issue, which is a recurring issue about the concern for helping the world as opposed to just developing understanding. Would you like to say a little more about that?
Yeah, so basically I have been a little bit I've been listening back to Tana John's talk with me and the Nepali students about this, but the issue of kind of reconciling a more like contemplative sort of approach to studying Dhamma and trying to live a life of mindfulness and kind of just like dedicating life to study and also being involved in like welfare in the welfare of like the community at large, like working for good causes or like donating to good causes and doing what one can to like help the world situation in terms of disease, hunger, war, famine, that kind of thing. And like I have sort of been wondering, I see sort of like a contradiction between like the approach of a person working for something to happen in the world for the betterment of other people, like they as if they were an actor in the world that could change things, and leading a contemplative life where like that there is no you to like change things or act on things in order to contribute to anything. So like it's kind of like, is the answer then what I asked was, is the answer then a kind of like I don't like a kind of quietism where you like sort of where there's an eschewing of the problems of the world and not getting involved in politics, welfare, that kind of thing? Or is there like some kind of or is there no contradiction between between contemplative Dhamma study and living a life in accordance with the Buddha's teachings and getting involved in like social projects.
Okay, that was very good introduction. Tom, would you like to give a few comments for a change?
No. But if I think of something, I will pipe in.
The reason I suggested you make comments is because I know that you are someone who is concerned about social and worldly issues, and yet really appreciate the importance of the Dharma. And I think that there's no contradiction, no conflict at all. But that's why I thought that you might like to make a comment.
Well, I agree. I think that we can get lost in concepts and thinking, but Dhamma is with us no matter what we're doing. And of course, being honest and truthful in our lives is certainly an important part of doing that.
Yeah.
And I think we can say that everyone has different accumulations, different tendencies, different interests. So some lead what Trevor considers a quiet, contemplative life in a quiet place, others involved in a lot of community work or social work and are busy helping people in a lot of different ways. So different accumulations, but for all, the truth is the truth. The understanding is the understanding. So it's not a matter of changing the habits or changing the patterns. If one would like to get involved in the social issues and help with the hunger and disease and other factors, go ahead. It doesn't mean there can't be understanding developing at those times. If one by nature likes to live quietly in the forest, okay, go ahead. But the truth still is the truth regardless. So I think the more understanding, the less conflict with these kind of issues.
I see. Thank you.
And do you have comments on these points?
Yeah, I agree. I think if there are accumulations to assist in some way or another in the community or individually, or, with problems in the community or disasters that may arise, do it. It's wonderful. It's very helpful. Although I think when you look more deeply at the Dhamma, there is an understanding, part of what we learn through the study of the Dhamma is about anatta. No one can control. I can't. I think we often think when we help or do things in the community that we're helping to make a difference, and I think on some level that's probably true. And yet, looking at it from a strictly Dhamma perspective, there may be a difference being made, but it's not we who make it. It's conditions that bring this about. So yeah, I don't think. A lot of people feel very proud and pleased with themselves for having done it. Well, they didn't do it themselves. All of the help and all the love that's involved is coming from. It's conditioned. It's conditioned. There's no I doing it, and so I agree with not. One doesn't preclude the other, but I think to be sort of more truthful to the Dhamma, I think the realization that there's no me who does. That these things happen by conditions.
I'm just Trevor, excuse me,
Mhm.
if I can just add a couple of words, it's Sundara here. It's all, we're all wired very, very differently. Everyone is totally unique, every individual.
Mhm.
But there's always Dhamma, no matter what, where the person is or where people are. And I see that the Buddha Dhamma as a gift to people to begin to appreciate that. I'm thinking, of course, I thought, of course, when you started to speak of people like Anathapindika, who was known as the chief lay supporter of the Buddha. He was an amazing individual.
Yeah.
He was, you may have heard of him, you may have come across him in different sutta. He had tremendous, obviously tremendous admiration and consideration for the Buddha. He was a Sotapanna. He was an enlightened being. His name actually means, that wasn't his true name. His true name was Sudatta. But his given name, if you like, or his epithet is Anathapindika, which means the feeder of those who are more vulnerable. And he established, not only, of course, spent now today millions of dollars in building things for the Sangha, for helping people who are more vulnerable. That was his accumulation. He wanted to do that. There are other people, as you mentioned, Trevor, also, who were contemplatives. And I think it can be a kind of a misleading word in some respect, because I know what you mean. It's often a translation of the word bhikkhu, but the word also to contemplate, the verb to contemplate, can be applicable to anyone who appreciates Dhamma, because that's what I believe must be done. We could say it's almost synonymous with the word to consider carefully, the reality that appears, wherever that appears, in the madding crowd, so to speak, or in the forest. In many ways, the exterior is not the important thing, because we know the Buddha traveled, as you know, he lived in the forest a lot of the time. But of course, he traveled and taught, as Tanajana often reminds us, for 45 years amongst the people in all sorts of situations, whether he was in the temple or he was in the village. When the conditions were right, he would share the Dhamma with people, and that's what it was. And I think over time we have got this kind of dichotomy, this idea that you have to be in the you have to be in the village, or you have to be in the forest, or you can't. It's not so useful in the town. Those ideas contradict, as I read it, what the Dhamma is about. It's always up for us to investigate, to listen, to consider carefully. So I don't see any contradiction between the contemplative's life, or if they want to live that, if he or she want to live in that way, or for somebody else who wants to live in the city or in a built-up urban area, as many people did in the Buddha's time. So it'll always, because ultimately they will come down to different stories and different conceptual constructs, the city or the town, and they are in many ways external to the nature of Dhamma that appears, because that Dhamma, or the different Dhammas that appear in our life, like now, are always present, forever present, whether in the rural area or in the urban area. And it's for us, for the wise, to consider that matter carefully and the implications of that, because the Dhamma, you're not excluded from it if you live in a built-up urban area. That contradicts the Dhamma. That directly contradicts, no matter what. And if other people say you have to go to a certain place, or you have to put yourself in a certain position, or whatever, You won't find that in the sutta. You won't find that in the sutta everywhere. Anyway, look, I'll leave it at that for the time being and let others share what they feel might be useful. But it's a good topic, and it's a perennial topic, as Sarah alluded to, that's often talked about, because we have heard from so many other people perspectives that support that view that you have to be in a certain place. And then it's up for people to consider carefully in the light of what they've read within the sutta, or from what they hear from people like Tanajan or whoever. The Buddha always said that. And even in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, which I was thinking about, was that he said, even if people speak to bhikkhu who have been ordained for 30 or 40 years, what they say should be considered in the light of the Dhamma, not just because they say it. Not just because they say it. And Tanajan once said to me many, many years ago, anybody can say anything. It's up for us to consider carefully, does what they are saying add up? Or does 2 and 2 make 7? And that's what many people try to convince us of in the world today. Quite apart from Dhamma, 2 and 2 doesn't make 7. And it's good for always to us to consider that very, very carefully. What is Dhamma, and can it be developed at this present moment? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And I also was wondering, kind of as an extension to that, like whether in that case, if acting in the world for the benefit of other people can be a form of dana, or a giving. And like I was reading the book The Perfections Leading to Enlightenment, and the commentary was quoted where it says like he, meaning the great man, gives his feet in order that he may approach the terrace of enlightenment with feet marked with the auspicious wheels, the gift of his hands in order that he might bring beings the rescuing hand of the true Dhamma, and so on. And I was wondering if a correct reading of that commentarial anecdote could be possibly acting like in like for the benefit of other people in like kind of social work kind of ways, like that can be considered a kind of giving, because like as we know, like that abstaining from violence and abstaining from harm, like it's mentioned in that commentary to give the gift of I believe that commentary in the gift to of safety to like beings that otherwise wouldn't be safe if one were taking lives, like animals and plants and so on. And like so I was wondering, I guess, if a kind of acting on behalf of like popular welfare could be like kind of like a form of giving, even in that way, just to take it a step further.
Yeah, well, sure. You know, that you know, as I alluded to just a moment ago when I talked about Anathapindika, you know, he was the most generous, unbelievably generous person in the time of the Buddha. And of course, the Buddha, you know, in past lives, if you probably read some of the Jatakas, you'll see he fulfilled certain perfections, and one of them was the perfection of giving, and he was incredibly generous. So that doesn't, and that of course does not contradict the nature of Dhamma. We're all wired very, very, very differently, and giving can take many different forms. There's a concept in Thailand which is very beautiful called abhayadana, which is a gift of fearlessness, so that you give to the other person, even if that person has been very unkind or cruel or very nasty to you, has harmed you or members of your family, you give to them the gift that I will never do that. I will never harm you. No, no matter how horrible you have been. So giving can take many different forms, but I think probably on the highest giving is the giving of Dhamma, and the Buddha talked about this gift of, in the Pali it goes something like this: of all giving, so sabbadhanam, which is all giving, dhammadhanam janati, that is the best and the most highest giving. So there's many different levels of giving, but we can also say there's the gift of renunciation at this present moment, which is the giving away of, we can say, like, when there's that development of understanding, we're giving away the idea of a self for a moment. And that's what essentially teachings revolve around. We want to develop the understanding that truly penetrates the idea of anatta, which is
Excuse me
not
for
self.
interrupting, Sundar. I think some other people waiting to speak too.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to address the idea of giving to to other causes and doing all of those things, or dana, but it takes the wisdom of understanding to be able to know how to do that properly. And the only way to acquire, I guess acquire is the correct word here, the only way to achieve that is by the development of understanding, so that it is done in the right way that is best for those other people that you wish to help. We find there are so many causes around the world which they want to do this, they want to get rid of plastic, they want to get rid of this and of that, and they don't realize how embedded, say, plastic is in our lives. Fine, I would have to give up my eyeglasses and so on, but it has to be done in a way in which wisdom prevails and harms the least amount of people. So if you pursue a course of joining various organizations or whatever to help others around the world, even or wherever, the wisdom that can be developed through the Dhamma, through understanding the Dhamma, is probably the best guide as to how to do that.
I see.
I'd just like to add one comment here, that we're talking about helping others in the world, but what about the people who we naturally come into contact with in the course of a day? What is our attitude to them? Is there metta, or is there attachment perhaps, or dosa? So I think helping others begins with a wholesome mental state towards those people we come into contact with naturally, without having to look for other people to help. And as regards thinking of it as a kind of giving, it's possible to look at it that way. But whatever one is doing because one is inclined to help. And just, we don't have to think of it anything other than that. One's only doing what one is naturally inclined to do. And okay, one can think of it as a kind of giving, but it's not necessary to analyze it any further than that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, when there are opportunities to help, when there are opportunities to give, one shares, one gives the best one can. But the reason that the sharing of Dharma is the greatest generosity, and the reason why the understanding is most important, is because however many people we help recover from disease or suffering or this problem or that problem, the real problems, the deep-rooted problems, continue on life after life in samsara, the clinging, the ignorance, and so on. So only the development of the path actually leads to the eradication of the root causes of all problems, which are the living in samsara life. As soon as one's born, there are going to be problems, diseases, sickness, and death. So only the understanding is the real true medicine. But all kusala is kusala, so better than akusala. So help, do whatever one can.
Yes, just on that last point, when we talk about helping others, we're talking about kusala, aren't we? And kusala is a mental state. It's not an act of doing this or that, because one can do this or that with varying degrees of kusala and akusala. So I think it's helpful to keep in mind that what we're talking about really, when we talk about helping others, is kusala citta. And kusala citta can and does arise naturally in a day. Is it recognized as such? Maybe not. So when one's helping others, is one aware of how much of that is kusala and how much is the usual akusala? Because that's really what's important, not what the act is, and the conventional idea of the benefit that's being given to the other person. Thank you.
And I think
I
it's
think
time
the
for
other-
Ajahn to. Sorry, go ahead. So, Anne, go ahead, and then Ajahn.
Okay, I can be very quick. I think the other part of it that's important is the giving and the helping is kusala. The genuine giving and helping is kusala. But if one is doing this for recognition or expectation of some sort of reward, then that is not kusala. So it can be very subtle. What is kusala and what isn't, and probably, I don't know for sure. I would think you could infer that there can be very moments of both in some situations of giving.
And without understanding, how can it be known? How can it be known whether it's kusala or akusala? How can it be known that they are just dhammas, which are anatta?
Yes, it's bound to be mixed kusala and akusala. I think, Anne. So bound to be, we could say. Yep. Thanks for making that point.
And what about now? Ajahn, would you like to add some comments?
So, what's the best way to help the world? The best way to help the world. Are we now on the way, the best way to help people? Otherwise, it's just endless helping. But the best way is to help them to understand the truth, the only way. So now we are on the way to help people study carefully, to help the other to have a right understanding of what is there now, which is so very subtle. Otherwise, it's not the way to help the world, to be wholesome, to understand the truth, to let go ignorance and all kinds of akusala dhamma, which conditions unwholesome situation, traveling on and on endlessly. So now we are on the way to help the other to understand the truth, which is right now as it is, but it's so very subtle. That's why the moment of understanding the subtlety of all kinds of Dhamma right now is the way, the only way to help everyone to let go the idea of I can do or I shall do or I would do, because it's there already. So learn to understand what is there already, no matter it is kusala or akusala or just seeing and hearing, they are all conditioned. No one there at all. And the truth is that what is there is so very short, rapidly arising and falling away, and never to return. And the understanding of the truth, condition, moment of letting go, little by little, the akusala acts or deeds by conditions. No one there can do anything at all, but understanding works its way all the time. Dhammas have its characteristic, different one. The lopa cannot be the dosa, attachment cannot be aversion. Who can make what arise? Impossible. It's there already, right now, but it's not known. That's why learn to understand the very subtle reality that even it's there seeing. We talk about seeing many times. What for? Not to forget that seeing is conditioned. Now, whatever is there arises and falls away instantly, continuously, no time to have the understanding of the moment of arising and falling away of whatever is now. Is that true? Learn to understand what we take for trouble or happy moment or very, very dangerous moment. All are different realities, conditions. So learn to understand the conditions for whatever arises. And understanding akusala cannot condition kusala. And what is kusala and what is akusala is conditioned by accumulation, by many, many conditions for whatever arises now. To understand the truth, actually, what the world is, only that which has conditions to arise and fall away from moment to moment, never to return. Birth and death and birth and death, birth and death. After birth, only seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. So understand how short each moment is. Otherwise, the idea of someone or something is there to be object of craving and ignorance, attachment, aversion, on and on, endlessly. So now we are on the way to help people the best way, to have they have understanding their own, not to be conditioned by akusala as much as the very bad situation happened many, many times in a day. Is that the true help? So,
Yes,
yes, please.
I would say it is the true help.
And we are learning to understand what is there now in order to help the others too.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's the moment of appreciate the Buddha's virtues, the one who realized the truth.
Yes.
And he helps the other to understand the truth too. That's the way to help the world.
I see.
Without understanding, can anyone help the world?
No, no one can.
Because as long as ignorance is still their condition, it has to be just like everyday life now.
Yeah.
That's why we learn to understand what is there, which is so very subtle, beyond expectation, beyond imagination. Just one reality appear, but by way of nimitta, because just one single reality cannot be known at all, because of the rapidity of the arising and falling away of what is there now. No matter what is seen arises and falls away. It does not appear as just one single object, but it appears as something by shape and form, by thinking about different reality which appears from one to the other all the time. And then gone, never to arise again, just a moment ago, never to return at all. On and on to the end of life by conditions, and new life follows instantly by condition, non-stop as long as there are conditions. And we use the word paticca samuppada and on, last life, this life, and future life. Conditioned by avijja, ignorance of the truth. So each word of the teachings, just to understand what is there in life each moment, even now. If this moment is not understood, can there be any moment be understood?
No.
So what is there now? There must be a reality which is conditioned to arise, to experience an object. Seeing,
Right.
experience that which is appearing now. Hearing, experience sound. Each moment it's there, experiences different object in life. So learn to have confidence. What is there is conditioned reality each moment. Even its anger or attachment or feeling or memory, no matter what in a day, all are dhammas, each different one. But there must be the chief of experiencing, otherwise nothing can appear at all. No one, only dhammas, arises and falls away by conditions. That is not just the word, but it's the word of truth, because the truth can be realized little by little, stage by stage. Now just consider what the Buddha taught about this moment. It's real. He used the word Dhamma for whatever is real. Seeing is real, it's a Dhamma. Hearing is real, it's a Dhamma. So whatever is real is Dhamma. Touching, hardness, taste, and so on. Every moment, what is that? It's a conditioned Dhamma. It's already arisen before anyone can think about it. It's gone. So ignorance is there. So very, very subtle. Even now, I'm hearing, see? Years and years and years accumulation of wrong understanding, taking what is there as something or I. So it can be suddenly letting go, absolutely or ultimately eradicated. It takes time to understand, to have firm confidence of the truth. And those moments are parami, the supporter for panya to develop on and on and on until what is there each moment in life is known as a reality. Is that true? The truth is the truth.
Yes.
And this is intellect understanding. If there's not level of understanding as intellectual understanding, how can there be the development of understanding? And Buddha used the word bhavana. It means developing understanding from moment to moment by conditions. By conditions. No one can do anything because actually, even at moment of I am doing, it's just a reality. Thinking is there. Without thinking, can there be such idea? So can anyone do anything? Not at all. So what's the idea? our practice, what it means, not the word of the Buddha. It's not subtle at all. I practice or I will do. It's not subtle, it's wrong because no understanding of even that is thinking. So what is there now? If it's not known, it's impossible to understand what is there, the next and the next at all. So the teachings of the Buddha is Satya, the truth. And Intl.Dhamma is so real. It is Satya Dhamma. So right understanding can realize the truth as it is, Ariya Satya Dhamma. Not just have the idea, wrong, right understanding, but it's moment of understanding the nature of that which is there. From hearing again and again and again, to let go the idea of I do, or whatever is there. Imagine the accumulation so enormous of akusa ignorance 100,000 years and years and years ago, and it cannot arise again. What is there as I? How long it will take to have firm confidence of the Satya as Satya Parami and Adidana Parami and Viriya Parami and Khanti Parami, Nekama Parami, all kinds of kusala which will support, condition the understanding to develop a little more, just a little more, comparing to eons and eons of the accumulation of ignorance and attachment. Is this the way to help the world?
Yes. To get rid of the defilement, to chip away at the defilements just through understanding by conditions, just chipping away at it.
And
Well,
that's the way. But people think differently. They think that I will try to experience it. See, that's not the way.
Hmm.
and if I could just add one point, comment, Trevor, to your last remark. The aim is to develop understanding, really, rather than to reduce the defilements. And the reason for that is that enlightenment, which is the final goal, is a penetration of the truth. So reducing the defilements is, I would say, a side effect of developing understanding rather than a goal. Of course, it's beneficial for oneself and for others, but we don't have to be ashamed that there are defilements because it's natural, everyone has them. And if one just thinking about reducing the defilements, it's an obstacle to developing understanding because one's focus is not quite where it should be. So it's the development of understanding that's the important thing, and the reduction in defilements follows naturally from that. Thanks.
And I was going to add, of course, it's not I or anyone that can chip away anyway. The chipping away is a function of understanding. So it just develops naturally. One doesn't have to think about how much is being chipped away because the understanding does its work. No I at all to help or do anything. And I think we always forget about the true world being just at this very moment, the seeing now, the hearing now, the understanding now. The more understanding, the more chipping away naturally, the more all kinds of kusala develop with that understanding, the kindness, the compassion, the assistance for others, with more truthfulness about what the real motives are, which Anne was referring to. not taking all one's unhappiness when one sees someone's sick or in the war zone, or being compassion, for example, not taking the attachment to one's family members for the metta. So it is the understanding that conditions all kinds of kusala to be a little purer, but not I that can do anything. So it always has to come back, the understanding has to come back to the understanding of the world right now. And then life follows naturally according to one's accumulations. And one is thinking, oh, I should do more, and I should this, and I should that, and I should look for more opportunities. It's all the story about I. It's the clinging to I, not the just helping or showing kindness when there are opportunities. So the development of understanding is really the development of the letting go of the strong clinging to I, chipping away very little at a time. And Trevor, you also had another question which you might like to ask Ajahn about, which we discussed just a little, but her answers would be helpful, I'm sure. Your other question was about devas. Would you like to bring up that topic?
Yes, I could bring up the topic. I was wondering what role, like I've seen when I was in Thailand, my family in-laws did a lot of pilgrimages to Buddha statues, but also to like Buddha relics and to holy sites, but also to devas, and they would offer things to the devas and to the Buddha and the triple gem. And I was wondering I asked this before when I first visited the foundation about like ritual and like how it ties into Dhamma, or is it an unrelated part of like add on to it that's not part of the original Buddhist teachings. But I was wondering what role propitiation of devas plays in like the Buddhist path, if any. Like if like what's the correct way to approach devas, like in order to understand that their state as well as ours is impermanent, and that they should just be respected, I suppose. But or if the entire thing is kind of like something that's not really needing to be talked about much or like thought about much. Thank you.
You mean like, are they just another being, perhaps, that we don't need to think about too much?
Yes, basically. Like, was wondering.
Ajahn, would you like to add some comments?
Is there only one world, one moon, or many stars, many universes? Can there be the being in some world, or impossible or possible, as this is the world of human being, and also the world of animal? Is there any difference between animal and human being?
Yes.
Same world? What's the world for animal, a human being?
It's the world right now. I would say world right now is human, like for in this moment.
And what is better, being an animal or a human being, even is crippled, being one?
Being a human is better, I would say.
What condition the birth of human being and what condition the birth of animal?
I thought that Kusala conditions the birth of a human being. Great Kusala conditions the birth of a human being, but a Kusala brings birth in the lower realms, like in animal or in the other lower realms.
Begin to be reasonable, wholesome condition the wholesome result, right?
Right.
Good
Yeah.
result. And wholesome condition unwholesome or bad result.
Mhm.
And what about human being and deva? Because we do not understand the many different degrees of wholesomeness yet. We just talk about seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, kindness, or ill deed, and so on. But they are all conditions for birth, right?
Right.
That's why to be born as human being and to be born as deva much more pleasant than the human being by conditions, much more kusala as conditions. So good results to be born in Deva world, and there are other higher world than Deva too, by the degrees of wholesome chitta, wholesome karma. That's why we learn to understand about the truth of the one who had enlightened the universes. And he taught
John,
us about.
sorry, just to raise a point here. When you say higher degrees of Gusala condition birth as a Deva, but that's not necessarily with understanding. Am I correct? There could be other kinds of Gusala. So it can't be said that Devas have a better level of understanding than people in the human realm.
What do you mean with the understanding?
Understanding of realities.
The Deva, some of them do not understand at all. But the Deva includes also Brahma. That's why we have to differentiate the Deva and the Brahma. That's why learn to understand the difference little by little. Even sometimes they use the same word. When we talk about just Manusa and Deva, Deva includes other planes too. But in details, Manusa and Deva and Brahma, even Brahma doesn't have right understanding. They have wrong understanding. Even the Abhupalma, like the Buddha's teachers. Now they are in the Rupa Brahma, no understanding of the truth. That's why learn to understand the truth and consider whether it's possible or not possible. What the result is by conditions, wholesome condition wholesome or pleasant result. So we learn about wholesome and the result of wholesomeness and so on. Gradually, little by little, the way to help the world to understand the cause of the world.
And Ajahn, I think Trevor would be interested to hear any comments you have to make about the Devas that high people pay respect to and make offerings to. and the devas that we read in the suttas that inhabit the trees and can provide protection for human beings who pay respect to them. Thank you.
So, what reality do you respect?
What reality?
Yes, the
I
tree.
respect. I do
Or
respect
what?
the what I believe to be, well, what presences there are in nature.
Do you respect wholesomeness or unwholesomeness?
Wholesomeness.
So it's just as a tree, right? Or any idol, see, statue, not at all. That's why we learn about the differences between reality, the rupa, that which arises but cannot experience anything, hardness. Do you respect hardness? Or do you
No,
respect anger?
no,
That's why I respect the wholesome nature, the wholesome reality. Is that right?
that's right. I would think that other beings have wholesome mind states, but or some others, and they deserve to be respected if they do. But that might be wrong understanding. I'm not sure.
So do you respect the bad person?
I try. I try
Do
to just
you
respect.
respect the bad person?
Oh,
In truth.
no, I suppose not.
So when you think of Deva, higher plane than human being plane, more and more wholesomeness. So respect Deva it means respect the wholesomeness at level of
Mm,
born as Deva. And the
I
way to
see.
respect is the way to respect or to pay respect.
Means both, I suppose. Well, hold on one moment. Both, I suppose, like recognizing that there is wholesomeness in another being and that that wholesomeness deserves paying respect to.
That's it. That's the real respect. Respect his wholesomeness, the Deva's
Mm,
wholesomeness. Do you
I
have
see.
to give something to Deva?
Have I given before?
Do you have
He
Yes.
said,
to?
do you have to give something to the deva in order to pay respect? In order to pay respect.
Oh, no, I guess you don't have to physically give anything because you don't have to. It's more the intention that matters.
See now, is it the answer for the question about Deva?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it is.
And is it necessary to think about them in the first place? I mean, if one imagine, it's all assumed, isn't it? Imaginary when paying respect to the devas. One is just assuming that there are devas that will maybe can appreciate the respect being paid and that they have certain kusala qualities. One doesn't know what they are, but they were sufficient to condition rebirth as a deva. But other people have kusala qualities also, human beings do, and even some animals can. So why does one particularly select devas to think of and to have as an object of paying respect to the kusala?
I see.
And like Ajahn just gave the example of there can be birth in the highest Arupa Brahma realm, but without any understanding of the truth. So what is better to pay respect to understanding of the truth, or just any Deva or Brahma that may be lost in the world of attachment to all those sensuous experiences in the Deva realm. And with regard to offerings and respect to the triple gem, I think we've discussed before, if there's no understanding of what the triple gem is, if there's no understanding of what the Dhamma is, if there's no appreciation of the qualities of the Buddha, and if there's no understanding, how can there be any appreciation of the wisdom of the Buddha? Then it's not actually paying any respect. It's just a kind of clinging to, offering to the triple gem, but actually not with any understanding. So I think whether it's devas, relics, triple gem, holy sites, without any understanding, it's all quite useless.
But with gratitude and understanding, if it's an expression of that, then it is a wholesome act, right?
Well, what about now? Does one have to go to a special place or perform a particular task? What about appreciation for the qualities of the Buddha now, so that we're able to have
That's
this
true.
discussion? What about understanding, seeing at this moment what life is now? This is the way to show real respect to the triple gem, the understanding at this very moment, not the lighting of incense or arranging of flowers or some particular deed, but the actual understanding at this very moment. And if one's thinking of the devas, just like one thinks of other people here as different beings, but what about understanding that just like now there are only dhammas, no you nor me? It's the same in the Deva realm, just different moments of kusala, different moments of thinking, different moments of experiencing through sense doors.
And I think, like we discuss in respect of other forms of kusala, if it occurs naturally in daily life, that's one thing. When it is ritualized, then is it going to be the same naturally arising kusala?
No.
Don't think it can be. It's like chanting, for example, or reciting things from memory. Just normal mind states may condition some moments of kusala. Who knows? But it's not likely to be. Just like reciting, having a practice for metta, or having metta to the world. No, it's not the same as the metta that arises naturally in a day when one comes into contact with other beings.
I see.
And what about the clinging to having kusala, the clinging to having metta, the clinging to having respect for devas, thinking it will bring some good result, or the clinging to showing respect to the triple gem, again, waiting for the beneficial results? Actually, it's not any understanding, any development of kusala. It's for I. For me or my relatives. So I think it's just like the question of helping the world. The more understanding there is of the truth now, the more, no matter what act one is partaking of, no matter whether one's going to the temple or not, no matter whether one's helping the stray dogs or not, with more understanding, there will be more honesty, more sincerity, more kusala naturally. not by trying to have kusala.
I have a comment, if it's okay now. It's that there's a sutta, I can't remember what it is, but it's about the son dying in the field. And when the message went back to the family, they all had the attitude, he went the way he had to go. And I've been thinking about that with all this war going on and the numbers of people being killed. And there's a lot of, anxiety about it all, of course. But that thought came to me. They went the way they had to go. And then I thought, oh, that's a hard thought. Rather than having compassion and stuff. They went the way they had to go. But it's true, isn't it? They died because the karma that kept them in this world ran out. And so I don't think I would talk like that to people who were not familiar with the Buddha's teachings, because it would sound very harsh and heartless, I think, to them. I don't know. But in one way, for me, it's a little comforting. Yeah. Okay, that's all I needed to say.
And I think it's a reminder, the Jataka, of whatever happens to the dear ones or anyone, what about equanimity? Because it is the way it has to be. It can't be any other way. What's the point in being so distressed and disturbed? Because that's it. It cannot be any other way at that time.
And often it's the distress that we feel is because of our own attachment, not necessarily not necessarily because that other being has died. They don't even, they're probably in, who knows where they are. There's someone else now. So yeah, that's always been an interesting one for me as well. So yeah, thank you.
And that's also a point connected with Trevor's, when one's trying to help the world, when one's distressed and there's stress, what kind of help or assistance is that? Because like you say, it's actually the clinging to oneself, clinging to one's pleasant feelings, not liking to read or hear or know about such details.
And likewise, the perpetrators of those horrific acts are deserving of compassion, because they are storing up very unwholesome karma that will bring fruit. But as you say, you wouldn't make a point of saying that in other company, in normal company perhaps. But if we're talking about absolute realities, which we are here, then that's the situation.
Yes, one can have sympathy for all the young soldiers. I was reading an article about a very elderly Japanese man. I think he's over 100 now, and he had been involved in the bombing of Pearl Harbor all those years ago when he was just young, 17-year-old or something like that. And he said he just followed instructions to destroy a battleship, but no thought of killing or harming. He just followed the instructions to help destroy the battleship. But for the rest of his life, he's had great remorse, because he found one of the ships that was destroyed was just a peacekeeping boat, but they didn't realize. And he recently went back to show his great regret and remorse. So his whole life he's had to live with this these acts. So but this, as Ajahn said, life goes on like this, one big problem after another, life in samsara, because of ignorance.
Yes. So
the only way to really help is for people to understand about ignorance and clinging and see what really drives the world on and on and on, lifetime after lifetime.
Most definitely. I couldn't have said it any better. Thank you, Sarah. I do have another query if there's no one else wanting to say
Go
something.
ahead.
Okay, it's to do with the asawas, because we talked about them a couple of weeks ago. And I went for a walk this morning past the dam, and it was absolutely beautiful. You know, the sun shining and glittering water. And I thought about the asawas that arise without, they can arise in the sense door. How on earth can that be known? You know, you can have lopa or attachment. Yeah, lopa, bhavasawa, ditasawa, and avijjasawa. And I noticed there's no, there's no dosa amongst those four. So they arise, say seeing, because I thought about it, I'm looking, and then immediately there's probably attachment, which is not even noticed. And it's probably ditty as well. Oh, look at the beautiful lake. So I thought about it, that there's absolutely no way, without understanding the realities, there would be no way to stop the attachment from arising, because it's there without any knowing about it. And there's no me to control any of that. You can't stop the attachment. It's risen already. So those asuras. So I'm presuming that those asuras that arise must arise with a very subtle feeling as well. Obviously not with a great, wonderful feeling, but just maybe even equanimity. I don't know. You know?
Pleasant feeling and pleasant feeling, but who would like to stop the pleasant feeling anyway? Who would like not to have the attachment and pleasant feeling? So it continues on and on.
Right. Yeah, I think that's why, why I thought about it this morning, because the breeze was beautiful and cool. It was just a lovely walk, and without being totally overwhelmed, it was just I was feeling very pleasant, and that's when I thought about the asanas. So yeah, pleasant feeling. Okay.
And it has to be more subtle, but at least there's
so
some appreciation. It is just attachment, common daily attachment. Just before John speaks, Nina, because we don't have much time, Nina, I think, wants to speak. Okay. Nina, go ahead, bring up your point.
Thank you
Good
so
to
much.
see you, Nina.
Good to see you. Thank you so much. My question is related to what Azita has mentioned, but I just want help to elaborate on Sama Vitaka, Sama Sangapa, as you know, that experiencing dosa and the idea of the idea of digging where this dosa is coming from, the idea of clinging to yourself, it all comes from vitaka. So somehow, even though at that moment, that point of unpleasant feeling, deep unpleasant feeling, you can actually feel the pressure and the pain, which is touched somewhere around that you can't see. However, the vitaka is there to help you bring all the information, bring all the lessons that we have learned to identify that it is dosa. But still, it somehow does not, I wouldn't say help, but it does not clear out the idea. So I think in a way, we can't really identify the true reality of Samavitaka. So I would like everyone to help bring that up as an example. Thank you.
I just bring Ajahn in first because I think we don't have much time. So perhaps Ajahn would like to address Azita's and your comments.
Yes, thank you, sir.
What else would you like to know besides Vitaka?
For me, no. I think Azita, you can ask.
No, I was about to say that's a question for you, Nina.
Yeah, I think it's a question for you, Nina.
Yes. I want to understand the reality of Samavitaka when it arises.
And what else?
That it could help identify dosa when it's there.
Can you?
No.
So, what about now? Is there Vitaka?
Yes.
Understand it. What moment is Vitaka?
The moment of thinking.
And
Understanding.
And
Considering.
pardon?
Considering.
And
Feeling something.
All before
this is
that,
the
even
beginning.
after seeing and hearing so quickly.
Yeah.
I see.
This is the beginning to understand what you like to understand. See, what moment is with Vitaka and what moment is without Vitaka. That's all. But does it appear? If not, what appears should be known, or just keep on thinking about that which is not there appearing.
I see.
And this is the study of Dhamma. What Dhamma is there now is not known yet. That's why learn to understand the truth of it until the truth of it appears to be known clearer and clearer and clearer. To let go the idea of self or something of that object as before. Is this the teaching of the Buddha?
Yes, Ajahn.
Does it help the world?
It helps the world starting from ourselves.
So Nina, after seeing now, Vitaka arises with every chitta in the sense door process and every chitta in the mind door process. Kusala, akusala, vipaka, kiriya, vitaka. So it rises with almost every chitta in a day. And when you talk about samasankapa, this is particularly referring to the vitaka which arises with right understanding just at those moments. And so when we talk about clinging, vitaka is there, but akusala vitaka is there at those moments. So it arises at each moment. So it's not like touching the pressure or the pain. It's not that kind of touching. It's touching whatever object is experienced. It leads the chitta to that object to experience it. So at almost every moment right now.
Yes.
So when dosa arises at that moment, the citta experiences the object of dosa. The dosa experiences that same object with aversion. Vitaka has its role. It leads the citta and the dosa to that object, touches the object in that sense. So that's why we have to consider its nature more carefully. And when you mention about vitaka bringing back to identify the idea or something, at the moment of thinking, vitaka is leading or touching the object of the thinking at that moment. So at every moment, so common.
I see.
But it's only sama sankappa when there are moments of right understanding.
I see. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
A bit more.
Yep, a little bit more understanding.
Isn't Vitaka classed as the foot of the world? As in, it steps on, it just, I think, imagination, it's stepping along on with every jitta.
Right.
Except for seeing, hearing, except for those.
Without that foot, nothing is experienced at that moment.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Yeah.
What conditions sama vitaka though?
Right understanding. So sama sankappa, which is right vitaka, is the cetasika that arises with right understanding of the path. When there's right understanding of reality, it needs the sama sankappa, the right vitaka, to touch the object for the understanding to understand. So it's an essential part of the path, but it's only sama sankappa at moments of right understanding, at moments of thinking about the dam and the pleasant scenery and so on. Vitaka is there at each moment. There cannot be any thinking without vitaka, but it's not sama sankappa.
I see.
Just like there is viriya, effort, at almost every moment now, when speaking, when picking up the carp, when talking and so on. But it can be kusala, it can be akusala, it can be vipaka, it can be kiriya. It's only right effort of the path at moments of right understanding, not at moments when there is the idea of I doing something or I helping the world. So that's why it's helpful to consider a little more about different factors and when they arise. Otherwise, we can think it's all clear, but it gets mixed up. So each term, each cetasika has to be considered in detail.
Yes, I agree.
And Ajahn, would you like to add any more before we finish the discussion today?
Is there vitaka now?
Yes, Ajahn.
What moment there's no vitaka?
A moment of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting.
What about moment before seeing? Is there vitaka?
Moment before seeing.
Before seeing moment, is there vitaka?
There isn't.
How many moments vitaka arises with?
After to see.
How many moments vitaka arises with? Or how many moments vitaka does not arise?
So vitaka arises in many moments of the mind door. But
And
not
sense door. You were right when you said it doesn't arise at moments of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. Just those moments it doesn't arise with. So before seeing, it arises. After seeing, it arises, even in the sense door process. And the same for the others. At every other moment. We're not talking about rupa citas, jhana citas. But now in life, at every other moment, before seeing, after seeing, in deep sleep, whilst dreaming, at every other moment.
Can vitaka be kusala?
yes,
Can vitaka be akusala?
yes,
Can vitaka be vipaka?
yes,
Can vitaka be kiriya?
yes, it can.
Vitaka does not arise with what kind of chati?
The vipaka, no, the moment of seeing is like citta, chakko vinyin, sota kina jivaha.
So when does vitaka vipaka?
When there's vitaka, vipaka. I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
When does vitaka vipaka?
You said,
When
Nina,
is-
that it doesn't arise of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, these vipaka citas. So what vipaka citas does vitaka arise with? Not those ones, but what vipaka citas does it arise with?
With panchaviyan,
Can vitaka be lokutra?
yes,
When
when there's an after enlightenment.
when does vitaka be kusla?
Oh, when does vitaka be kusala? When there's right understanding.
What about when there's no understanding? Can there be vitaka?
Yes, there can be vitaka.
Okay, can vitaka be lokutra?
Vipaka can be lokotara
When
there's right understanding.
when it arises with lokutra citta.
When it rises with lokotara citta, yes.
How many lokutra cittas vipaka arise with?
I know there are 4, 8, all of them.
Only 8 or more or less?
For now, I think 8.
See, not just 4. Can it arise with kiriya citta?
Yes, it can.
Can it arise with manodavara vachana?
Yes, it can.
Can it arise with panchadavara vachana?
Yes, it can.
Can it arise when one is sleeping?
It's there. Yes.
So firm understanding of no one, different dhammas, according to its nature. This is the moment of letting go the idea of self unknowingly, where there's a little more understanding of the truth. But it's not just the word, but it has to be the understanding about Dhamma as Dhamma too.
Yes.
And in deep sleep, Nina, these are examples of vipaka cittas, the bhavanga cittas with vitaka that are not seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and the other vipaka cittas are those that follow seeing, two more vipaka cittas, but they need vitaka. So in the sensor process, so these were examples of vipaka cittas with vitaka. So a little more detail.
Yes, I understand. Thank you so much.
I think it's time. Hello, Rick.
Oh, hi.
Hello. I heard that Nina said that Pitaka arrived with Panchatvara Vachanachita. Did you say that?
Yes, correct. Yes.
So Pitaka is arrived with Panchatvara Vachanachita or not?
Yes, correct. It arises with every citta other than seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. Yes. Kusala, akusala, vipaka, and kiriya. The Panchadwara Vajana citta is kiriya citta. So it arises with those cittas too.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. It's been very helpful.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
So,
And thanks for your questions too, Trevor. Yes.
thanks,
Yeah.
Trevor.
Thank you.